Today's video is all about how to tile a shower. We're talking about the hows and the whats and the whys, the materials that we choose, how to get perfect grout lines, how to avoid lippage, how to trim out your window niches, how to make sure everything slopes towards the drain, and how to seal it all up so it'll last for years and years and years to come. If you're thinking about tiling your own bathroom, this video is for you. So I know that sometimes it's a little bit daunting to consider tiling your own bathroom, especially as a DIY or a homeowner, but in today's video, we're gonna go through the 3 things that you need so you can be successful. You're gonna understand your layout, your process, and your techniques. We're going to tackle all that information one step at a time so you don't get overwhelmed. We're going to be using 2 different stones here today. So we're going to use the same stone that we did on the floor. If you're following through the bathroom, it's a large format tile. And then we also have a mosaic. This is fun. This is for our shower floor. We're able to have a variation of different size tile because we have one slope. This is the Tile Your Way, Tile Ready custom shower pan. Only has one slope. It does not have the envelope system where it drains to the middle from all different 4 corners. Today we're going to talk about the simplicity of this system because we are already 100% waterproof. And really all we have to do now is focus on the layout, which is our design. So we have design elements that we want to consider, okay? One of the design elements is we have a grout line. Now when we did the floor video, we talked about we have a grout line coming right up the middle, should be shooting off the side of this window here, which means all these tiles are going in horizontally from the grout line left and right. So every single tile in this shower is going to get a cut. Now, when you're doing your layout, you have to consider if you have a shower niche or a window, you want to get this perfect, okay? You don't want to have slivers. So now we have to measure the thickness of our tile, which is actually 23.5. And we want to take a look at 2 different directions. Do we want to finish with a full tile or start with a full tile? So to start with a full tile, we need to consider this. This is our finished floor. Our tile is going to extend past the shower and come down right onto that floor. So if we start down there and measure up, we can go to the ceiling and have a look at this. So 2 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet, it's a little bit shorter, but that's a nice full stone there. The other thing to consider is, what does it look like inside the shower? Well, at this point, the shower pan's about 1 inch taller than outside, but 2 tiles, okay, is only 47 inches, and that's a problem, okay? We have a 1 inch gap. And because we're higher, it's actually 1.5 inches, maybe closer to 2. We would have this 2 inch sliver all the way across, and we'd have to cut it up to about here. So we'd have this piece and a 2 inch sliver. So that comes out of that stone and then up the side. And in my experience, those thin little L cuts, they always break on the corner, either while you're cutting or during installation. So we don't want that. So we have to do one of 2 things. We can finish at this edge, or we can have our joint somewhere else in the window. In order to do that, we're going to measure backwards. We're going to start at the ceiling, go to 2 feet, and go, perfect. Now I don't have any of these silly little slivers. Down to 47 inches is where the next joint would be. Now I have, almost an 8 or 9 inch tile here. That's a lot more substantial and really reduces the risk of breakage while you're doing the install. And it's not such an eyesore. It doesn't grab your attention the same way. So I like that one. And then we're going to have to measure down and pick a point where it exactly is going to finish so that we can drop our laser line and get the same height all the way around before we can even consider starting. This is what we're doing layout for. I should mention, when you're working with tile, you also have to consider your ceiling. All right, how level is that? How consistent is that? This one's pretty good. Yep. Yeah, we're okay. That should be normal, that the ceiling should be somewhat level. All right, today we're just going to worry about installing. We're going to add a gap at the ceiling. Tile requires anywhere where the tile touches another material, it's a silicone joint. So we're going to have an intentional gap along the ceiling. Also gives us a little bit of flexibility for that variance of things not being perfectly level. Now we're going to measure down. Now it's called the 24, but in actuality it was a 1/2 inch shorter, so it's 3 tiles. So we're going to be at 70.5. And we need 1/8 for each grout line. So there's 2 grout lines for 3 tiles and 1/8 for the gap at the ceiling. If you're not as level, consider giving yourself a little bit more mercy. I want to go right to 70 and 1/8. And that is going to represent the bottom of this stone. And so what I want to do is go 1 more 1/8 lower than that to represent the top of this stone. So here's my DeWalt laser level. If you don't have one of these and you're going to do a tile job, stop and go buy it. This drops a line horizontally and vertically. And when it's on a flat level surface, it does something like this. Our situation, we're going to just be using a pail and some shims. If you're doing a tile job, you're already going to have a pail. And if you're going to be doing any work like this, you need to have that kind of precision. Have a pack of shims, okay? There we go. Remember, what we need is a reference so that when we're cutting our tile, we're going to measure from this line down to our obstructions. We've got slope, we've got curbs, we have a floor, a top of curb, inside the pan, all different heights. So over here, for instance, I'm going to need to measure from here to the corner to make my mark just underneath that. That'll be the top of the tile. Over here, I need a measurement here. I need one for this height, so I'm going to make that mark to measure from here. And I need one for outside, so I'll make this measurement here. And following that slope, we're going to have to go all the way down to here. This pan has a slope, and then it levels, and it goes back up again. So I'm going to measure here, and here, and here. We are just going to be really careful with mapping this out. That's inside the pan, that's on top of the curb, and that is outside the shower. All right. Now we got all the information that we need for our layout. We are going to cut all of these details, get that whole first row installed, and then we can just simply build on top of that. That's going to be our process. There is a lot of options in the industry for how to do a shower. All the old school guys are going to be like, well, what you do is you put your shower floor down first, and then you build your walls on top of that. Back in those days, we relied on the tile to move the water to the drain. We relied on the grout to stay non-porous. And so we used sealers and epoxies. And as time went along, we started waterproofing systems. Keeping the water from getting underneath the tile is no longer a major concern. We're also using thin sets that are stronger when they're damp or wet. So if there's water migrating under your tile, it does not hurt. Now what I'm talking about, it's not a river, it's just a little bit of moisture. Our process is going to be wall first on the bottom, then we'll do the floor, then we'll do the curb, and then on the next day, because this is going to take some time, we'll come back and we'll build the rest of the walls out and we'll do the niche. And we're going to show you all the tools and techniques so that you don't have lippage, so that you have a perfectly good grout lines. It's going to stay waterproof. It'll be perfectly sound. It's not going to break up and come loose on you over time. And you're going to be successful. So the green line is where we want to make the cut. This is the grinder. This is the wheel. Just a basic continuous wheel. It's got little chunks of diamond embedded in the wheel. And that's what cuts and gets you the nice smooth edge. What we're going to do is set this up so we see the green. We're going to hold the tool like this, but instead of on that angle, we're going to open up just a little bit, like a 5-degree slope. And once he's got a nice score line, you can push this aside and it comes straight down on it. This keeps your line straight. This keeps everything from getting bad chips. Just makes it really simple so that you don't end up running all over the place. Once you're used to the grinder, after a couple of cuts, you can just go freehand. But when you're getting started, this is a great way to get a professional look every single time you cut. Right here should be 16. Here, 13 5/8. On the outside, we're a whopping 16 3/4. From the inside going out, this is where this gets tricky. This tile goes on first. The thin set is going to represent about this much thickness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from here to here. And I'm going 24 3/4. I'm coming up shy on purpose, knowing that after I'm going to wrap all this in stone as well. I'm going to go 25 1/2. I'm going to come over to 30 1/2 and then come down. And that is my process. Always built in a little bit of mercy for yourselves. There's my mark. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's gonna be perfect. We're gonna need these. We're gonna need these. These are horseshoe spacers. Now these don't have varying degrees of thickness. Some of them you do. These are just horseshoes. These are simple. These are for thick tile. You can use them to get spaces. You can stack them together to create different heights. The idea is that it's very easy to pull these back out again without using any tools up against your tile. The only thing I want to do now is my diamond sanding block. Okay. This is just a hand tool. You don't need a special buffing tool, no power tool for this. This edge here, because it goes on that wall in front of the other tile, this is going to be exposed. So when we come back at the end of the project to add our silicone, this edge could be too sharp. Now remember, when you're working, sometimes your hands get wet and they get soft. You take the sanding edge, okay? And you just hit that edge and it cleans it up a lot. If you have an exposed edge, use this, okay? Whenever you're Tiling, back to process. You want to tile your back wall and then bring your sides into the stone. That's best practice. To make your life simple, because we want everything level and vertical and plumb. If you wet shim your walls, like in the previous video, how to waterproof, we show you how to do this. So that the top and the bottom are perfectly plumb. Then when you come out of your shower, all your tiles can be cut the same. They're all gonna be 34s. And then I can have my shower edging. I'm gonna use a special metal edging. Boom, it's gonna be like a laser, okay? Everything is nice and simple. So once again, we're gonna talk through our tools, okay? This is your technique. You wanna get a low-speed mixing drill. The DeWalt makes one, Makita makes one. So they're designed specifically for drywall compounds, thin sets, mixing concrete in a bucket. I'm using the Schluter All Set. I recommend that for all of my DIY people out there. Yes, it's more expensive than other thin sets, but it works in every application all the time. We want to let this sit for 10 minutes before we use it, and then we're going to whip it again. We're just going to do the finger drag test. It's still a little thin, okay? It still needs another 5 minutes or so to set up. If it doesn't set up thick enough, we can add a little bit more powder so that we get the rigidity that we're looking for. Let's check another finger drag test. Oh yeah, it's a lot stiffer. Still not as strong as I want it to be, so I'm gonna fix it by throwing in a little bit more powder. Mixing of thin set is an art form. It's affected by temperature, relative humidity, all these things. The finger drag is really the hallmark of your test. You can already tell the peaks are a lot stiffer. Okay, finger drag. Yeah, that's holding its shape really nice. Remember the issue with water, if it gets behind the tile, you want it to find the drain. So if there's any air gap at all in this stone, and there will be it, I'm almost positive, because of the shower pan and this curdy band and the thin set, there is a build out at the bottom. We're gonna start by doing directional troweling, north and south up to our line, and probably a little bit past our line, but we want to make sure that we can see these two black lines, because that represents the grout line. Lining that up past our expected grout, our tile height, okay? Running at about 45-degree angle on the trowel the entire time. Now, because it is a lot thicker on the wall section down here, also going to flatten this out for the bottom couple of inches. I'm closing the face of the trowel so make it thinner. And then I take my stone, we back butter, and lay it up, and then we're gonna check for square, but we're also gonna check to see how close we are to our fictitious thin set line in the corner, and push it into the corner. Now here's our grout line. I'm liking that. We're gonna be using a tile leveling clip system. We're gonna buy a bag that has the thickness of the grout line. We're going 1/16. No fooling around, right? We want it sexy. Near the corners and near the inside corners, but not so close to the inside corners that you're gonna have a hard time putting it on and taking it off, okay? Give yourself a little bit of room. Now, I'll put the ones on the short side in a minute, but for now, that's good. Push that till it's square. Can't push it any further. And if it's still not square, you simply stab and lift, okay? And let it sit. This is why we do the first row separate from the second row. We want this to finish hardening up overnight so we can afford to get perfectly square. So then when we're building on that, we're just adding that thin set and adding that and then using the clips to keep it all nice and square. That's the whole goal here, okay? Now these are ready for tomorrow. We can actually build on that. I'm gonna show you a tool that every tile person needs in their toolbox. That's a box of #1 pencils, okay? Pencil is perfectly designed to remove all that thin set. It's sharpened, so it goes deep. It's a softwood lumber, so on the grooves, it doesn't hurt your glaze. And you can press it in and clean more than enough material out of the way for you to grab. And then we want to get the compression on here as well, so that we don't have lippage. Okay, double check. See if we pulled it off the wall. We're good. So far, I'm liking the way it's setting up. You know what? Let's just for fun dry fit it one more time. Just to make sure. That's a bigger gap than I want. I'm gonna go to the grinder and I'm gonna steal just a little bit more material from here so that it fits perfect. That was So much better. Remember what I talked about? I got to be able to have that metal get down here. So I'm going to just shove that in, make sure there's a hole for me. Beautiful. I can see my lines on my boards all the way around, and that's nice, but it's not as good as having a laser on it. So now you can see over here my laser is on my line and on the edge of my tile. What I'm going to do is shim all of this so that the laser is just touching the edge of the tile and I can see it in behind. So over here, that looks perfect. This end's low, this end is good, so we'll leave that one alone. And then on this side, I am a little low here and high over here. Yeah, I didn't leave myself enough mercy. And I'm a little high. Like I should have just cut it like this right from the very beginning. Oh, we just did all that work. Can't we just walk away? No, because my tiles will be on an angle. My gaps will be 0 to hero in the corners. We could lift everything else to the level of this, but that'll take just as much time. And then we won't be finishing with the full stone. So we risk having problems later. So instead what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull this tile off the wall, clean up all this thin set. All right, so that's what we're looking for. This is low, that's low. That is easy to fix. So one wedge on the outside. Bam, that's the money. And then one wedge in this corner. There we go. Now, whenever you're working with stone, there's a construction concept called the chief cornerstone. And whenever you're doing like a triangle or square or pyramid or something, they put that one stone, and it's a square stone, and they have to have it oriented just perfect. And then every other stone just fits flat up against the last one, and they all go perfectly square. That's what we need here. We need these 4 tiles to be completely level, square, oriented just so that everything else builds easy. So it might take you 2 hours to get your first 4 tiles on. Don't sweat it. You let that dry overnight before you build, and then the rest of the build goes super easy. You'll see that in a few minutes, but first we're gonna dive into putting on the mosaic on the floor. And here it is. Here's my mosaic. It's on a mesh sheet. Make sure when you're buying a mosaic that it is rated to be installed in a wet area. There are a lot of products out there that have a wet sheet that's not rated for wet areas. It's the #1 mistake people make. Oh, they see a mesh sheet and they think it can go in a shower. Not all tile is considered the same. There's different adhesives used to put the stone on the mesh sheet. And if you get a real cheap water base, it's probably a mosaic that's only designed for a backsplash. And you put it in this environment, and then the adhesive gets wet, and then it lets go, and then the tiles pop off. Haha, problem. So there's my first sheet, and that is how that's gonna look. That is my second sheet, and so on and so on, okay? And then we just got these cut so we can get started. And you can see how fast this lays out. The only difficulty here is on the inside corner that's not visible to anybody but someone having a shower. That's why we put the cuts. All the irregularities go over here, okay? We also have to contend with this. We have a drain. This is the drain cover, and it's black on black, so it's gonna be a little bit difficult to get all this really shown well, but we're gonna talk about this product here, metal edge for tile. The idea is the metal goes on and leaves a gap to be grouted. Then the drain goes in. We're gonna get our metals cut just a little bit longer on all 4 sides so we have a nice tiny gap so it'll still facilitate opening and closing. Whew, there we go. We're gonna just pull them off and use what we need to fill this space. This is gonna work out really well. We're gonna go like this. Okay, so we did this. Now we've got our look. And you can see these little slivers. Man, they are so unattractive, aren't they? It's not what we want to work with. So what I'm gonna do, scrap all of this. We're gonna start over with a new look. Here's my sheet. All we have to do to have a straight line right up against is cut here. Bam. We'll cut that stone back. And then we're going to cut this stone to fit there on that line. We'll have the foundation of straight. Let's get these done. Let's get this perfect the second time. Beautiful. There we go. That's basically how that looks. This is our jigsaw puzzle. We're gonna grab our thin set now. Now, I've had him make it up a little bit soupier than usual. Again, it doesn't take much to this to set everything in place. And the last thing we want to do is have so much thin set here that everything is squeezing out. I am using a 1/4 by 1/4 trowel. We're going to want to set that in a little bit of cement right on those edges. This is going to be a messy job. That's okay. One step at a time. We'll get there. All right. There we go. All right, our trough is in place. All of our trims are in place. They're messy. And once it's set, then we can remove the grate and we can really go to work at polishing that with a sanding sponge later. So I don't want you to panic. In the meantime, if we're going to go without the mesh, remove it off the tile. We are going on top of the metal. We don't have a choice but to back butter this a little bit so that we get bond with the metal. We're looking for the same gap on the back and the side. Drop that one in. This tile is going in without metal on the left side. And I'm lining this grout line up with this one. Okay, we're all sloping down towards this section. I can leave all this mesh on. We're going to be fine. I'd rather leave the mesh on here, have some consistency with the rest of the pan. Anywhere where they're not going to have mesh under something, like a replacement, we will just have to build out the cement on the tile itself before we lay it. I'm just going to set it so gentle, okay? Now this is how we set it, okay? Really gently. We're going to be pressing this tile with the mesh into that thin set and expect it to squeeze out the other side, all right? So here we go. And if we did this right, we'll get a good bond without the squeeze out filling up the grout lines. Here we are. So we're going to get squeeze out here. The secret is to give it an extra squeeze, clean it, and then pull away and it sucks it back down. All right, there we go. That's all, but that little bit of thin set there would have cost me 20 minutes to half an hour on the other side. I have a few tiles that I've already cut the end off of that I can just stack and stack, and I can just run through this now. Here we are. Making sure everything here is pressed in so we have no lippage. Okay guys, it's next day. Now remember what I said yesterday. The first row tile is the most difficult. It's the most crucial. We want to have this grout line based on what's going on with the floor, right? So it's very continuous. We also wet shim the walls so they'd be perfectly plumb. So check this out. Now when I go and measure to my grout line here, 34.5 and a bit, 34.5 and a bit, 34.5 and a bit. Oh my goodness, the wall is perfectly plumb. Now what we're doing is just kind of cutting them to fit and go. That means all I have to do is measure over here, 35.5 and a bit. I go 34.25. If I get a bunch of 34.25 tiles from my son, we'll just stack them, boom, boom, boom. This section of the wall is finished. This moves really quick, all right? And all we have to do is add our thin set and do the back butter consistently with the same trowel and the same process. The secret here, of course, is not making a hell of a mess down here where the tiles come together so we don't get squeezed out, all right? So we're gonna start up here and then we'll bring it down to the tile when we're ready. What I mean by that is I can grab some material, okay, and then bring it down to the area where I'm working. Because we had to pull the tile off the wall with the first row, I am back buttering, but I'm putting a fair amount of thin set on here. Let me show you, okay? I'm putting a fair amount of thin set on here, and I don't want to trowel it. I want to leave it smooth. Now we're going to count on those 2 plastic clips to keep the stones from coming in contact with each other, and then we're going to set it a little bit to the right, about 1/4 inch over. It should be sitting a little proud, and it is. And all we're going to do is slide to the left to collapse those grooves in behind the stone. We only want to do this once. If we collapse too much, or we push too far, then we got to come back again. We're going to keep on pushing. We'll have an indent. That's perfect. Wow. Now we can thread these on And we can go like this. Okay. Perfect. There we are. See here? I don't have a really nice line like this. I don't have enough thin set. Okay? That's why you got to go over and over and over. This will be a hollow corner. Got to keep on working it till it's perfect. If you don't have the right distribution, your tile is going to have air gaps. All right, about a 1/4 inch over on the back. It definitely got squeezed out over here. We don't want that, and I'll tell you why. This little clip, it's going to be in the thin set, and when it comes time to remove it, the clip will be buried in thin set, too proud of the weak joint that's in that clip. So when it breaks off, it will have plastic sticking out. And that can be a real issue. We're going to get in there a little bit deeper than the pencil. Clean out the extra thin set. Okay, so now we're going to collapse that ridge and slide it over. A little bit of pressure. All right, here we go. That's one wall. We have 4 sections, and then the inside of the window. So we got our work cut out for us today, but if we keep on pushing away, we should be all right. More of the same here. Now, one thing we want to talk about. The thin set's starting to get a little bit older. Okay, it's a little thicker. So now when I'm putting my trowel line on, it's going to be really pronounced, okay? And so I've seen this happen before on jobs. You get halfway through a pail, you're 35, you're 40 minutes into an install. It's got a bucket life of an hour. So when you go back to it, it's going to stand tall a lot easier. It's also harder to collapse when it's starting to dry. Having nubbits like this become really in the way. You got to be really careful not to leave excess mud anywhere, because it gets so thick, it will impede your ability to collapse that tile. We're going to try this one, and if it pushes in too far, we'll just take it off and add a little more baking butter. Yeah. See, I'm pushed in too far on this side, but not on this side, but I am at the top. All right, so then let's go look at our contact. All right, so the right side we made contact, because the wall I think curves out a little bit, but it wasn't enough material. We're gonna put another layer of thin set there in the middle. Let's go back up. That is a lot better. We're working with such huge stone, and we're using physical levels to create that first row, and our angle is actually off just a hair. So here, our gap is opening. All right, what we are gonna do is take advantage of this margin trowel, okay, and our yellow clips here. We're gonna give it a little bit of a bump. I'm gonna just maneuver that. Here's why this works. See all the little steps here? Every one of these little steps, okay, it's like a 32nd of an inch. So I can wedge that piece or that piece or that piece, and I can adjust. So I can adjust my angle, my slope of that tile, rotating counterclockwise using this step technique to get it exactly perfect, okay? While that thin set is setting up, we're going to just do a little peak action and then compress it. This tile is in just a little bit, and we need to make some suction here. One of the reasons I'm not using my suction cups on this install is because the tile has a bit of a texture. So it doesn't grab well enough for me to feel safe with it, but it should grab well enough for me to create a little bit of a pull. There we go. That's got it. I want 8 and 5/8, and we're going to cut that stone short of this as well. 31 and 5/8. 31, 5/8. All right, let's do the dry fit. I'm make sure we're not screwing this up. This works. Now, next secret, before we get a lot of thin set on here. Our 2 edges, these are going to be exposed, and then the metal sits on top. What we're going to want to do here is take my QEP sanding block. You saw the reason he cut that on an edge was to expose the chipped edge. Because of the texture, no matter what blade you use, you're going to get it. So what we want to come in nice and square. And yes, you can sand stone. There we go. Now it's no longer sharp. It's not as chipped. Any luck, We'll get this to sit really nice the first time. So now when I push over here, this corner pops out, but it pops out flush. That's actually not a problem. This edge is out, this tile is in, but it's flush with this one. I like that. So I think I'm gonna get the suction cup. I'm gonna pop this top corner out, bring it out to the rest of the surfaces. The only question we have is whether or not that's sitting perfect on that cut. Wow, that's a nice edge. So we had to make a bit of a pivot because this is sticking out and I got to get some pressure on that. We're going to put these two stones on first. And now I need a metal, so I'm going to do the assembly. 86 3/4. We're going to build this section of wall, and then the resistance of this build will hold this tile in place, and we'll use a couple of yellow spacers. And then we can continue on building from there. We need to apply fresh thin set that's going to go in behind this stone where the metal is going to slide into. And just get a couple of spots of thin set on here to kind of act like glue. Lots of goop everywhere. Here we go. One great big tile sandwich of love. The amount of pressure it takes for me to push this over, I'm going to use against this to hold that in position. The same way that you can shim a door, you can shim a tile. That's it. Now my gap is wedged in. It's not going to move around. Now that this thin set here can actually set up in its one given state, no more movement, no more crisis. Set in place. Get our grout line established. Okay, I don't have enough thin set underneath. My stone is settling just a little bit below the edge of the metal. So I'm going to pop it off, add more thin set, and do it again. So there's multiple things we're working on here at the same time. We want a gap underneath this metal. We want a gap here. And we want to make sure that the edges are lower than the face. We'll also make sure that we're level. The trick here is we're a little bit too level on the stone to the back. We're almost perfectly level. And that means in a shower environment, you're more likely going to be holding water on the backside. So even though we spent all that time making it perfect, it still isn't perfect. All right, we need more thin set on the back side of that tile. Let's go through this again. Level left to right. Yes. Slope. Now we're talking. Now the bubble's on the back line. Okay. Check the other side. Same thing. Knife is good. Level in the back. Okay. Because we've got all this fresh thin set here, this is very sensitive and it's easy to get kind of messed up. So what we want to do is come back here every time we finish a tile and double check that nothing got bumped or slid or settled out of place, okay? But as it stands right now, we're level across. We're on a 1 degree slope coming this way. We've got a grout underneath, a grout on the side, gap here, perfect gap here. That's everything we're looking for. Whew, don't touch it. Very important that this edge here is really good. What we're gonna do is we're gonna lift and thread this on. We're gonna do that twice, because 2 points of compression is better than 1. This will not only balance it out, but it'll help keep this tile from sliding down over time. All right, now we also got this point of contact here. And this is one of the reasons, guys, why we invented grout, because it fills all the imperfections from one piece of perfect to the next. Now this is sliding on me just a bit. My gap up there is a little big, so I'm gonna just give it some gentle lift. Back off my pressure, and we're gonna stretch the tile. Everybody watch the ceiling only. Okay, there we go, there we go. It's better to have this line just a little bit thicker than to have the whole ceiling line really screwed up, okay? And there we go. Now that one's done, it's not going anywhere. Oh, baby, baby. Okay guys, next day. Now listen, I want you to follow this very carefully because this is as bad as the shower is ever gonna look. Ever again, okay? Everything we do from here makes it look better and better and better. The other thing we want to do is get rid of all this, right? Yay, broke clean, everything is fine. This is therapeutic, you're gonna love it. And the point of this is We want to break it off so that we don't have the plastic sticking out. It has a weak spot, okay? It's perforated. So that's how that works. And we just rip all these off, and then we're gonna go around and we're gonna wash all of the stone so that we can make sure that all the little chunks of thin set that are still left on the tile are removed. We do not want to let this sit for more than 24 hours. 12 is ideal. So when you're finished your day, great. The next morning you get in here as fast as you can. After 6 hours, the thin set is set up and it's ready to be messed around with, okay? So you don't need to wait longer than 6, but 12 is ideal. Everything is dried in place. Now, I'm just looking for real quick if I have any chunks right in here. The painter's tool, that tip, that is just less than 1/16 of an inch. It is somewhat safe to have in here, but you want to pull straight along. If you start getting any resistance, because this is all so new, we can just get our sponge, get it wet. Once the thin set has gotten wet, it'll soften up and it'll clean out a lot easier. Here we are. We got a little squeeze out here. We don't want that. Okay, taking our sponge. Now the grout cleans up quite easily. Okay guys, here we go. This is our solution putting in the ceiling. 1/2-inch curdy board. It's pretty darn rigid, okay? But it's also soft, it won't damage the tile. So we're gonna get 2 supports. And the reason I'm gonna cut them thinner is because we have a slope here and then we have a slope down here. Trying to make all these things perfect is gonna be tough, so I'm gonna go wedge and then another wedge. So I have left and right sides. So I'm gonna do, that represents the height of my tile. And I'm gonna cut down to this point, which is another 1/2 inch lower, which represents the ceiling installed. We wanna make sure we have a really good bond on this tile, okay? So here's the secret. We're gonna skim coat the ceiling, and then we're gonna put the trowel lines on the tile instead of the other way around. It's still gonna be directional troweling. It's just going to be a little bit unorthodox. So if we can get 100% coverage on this. Now we're gonna start a little bit on the front side, okay? And then push it back and forth, and collapse the ridges. And we're gonna take a curdy board, wedge that in there. Here we are. We have our metal. We're gonna take our sponge. We're gonna take our edge. We're gonna push it into the thin set. This is a much easier process than trying to install the metal first. Okay. 31 1/4 and a hair. 31 1/4 and under a hair. It's too shy. Man, I should have measured it before I put it in. This one turns out, I asked for 31 1/4 and a hair. This one's 31 1/4 minus a hair. We'll clean it up and we'll reuse it for here. Details matter right now. If I put something on that's too short, then when I have my other metal line up, the corners will be off. Or if I make them line up, then I'm gonna have a huge grout line. That's not gonna look consistent. So let's try again. It's a good grout space here and maintain that grout space there. Okay, got it. So we're counting on the suction. We're using this to reduce or try to eliminate the effect of gravity. That's all. We're going to go and build this wall. What we're using as a tower, I'm going to show you in a second, because I wouldn't do a project like this until I had all my materials on site. So when we're cutting our tile, we want to be able to say, okay, we need room for each of these to be able to have a plumbing fixture and a wrench or fingers, and we don't want to go any wider than absolutely necessary. So our width is going to be like right here. We're going to cut that stone as close to the reality as possible. That gives me a 3-inch hole, and I don't want to go any higher than I need to, but why make it difficult? We'll just go 3 by 3. Let's go and take a look at the tower real quick and confirm that that dimension is going to be safe. Well, here we go, guys. This is my shower. The idea here is it gets mounted right about here. But for us, what we need to know is how wide is the inside of this tower. Exactly 3 inches. The outside is exactly 4. Not a lot of room to mess around with here, which is why our installation has to be perfect. Here we go. There's my line for my tile. Let's put a line on there that's specific for my metal. We're gonna get this installed now. I'm gonna go left and right, collapse those ridges. And this is one of these situations where you want to take a look. Okay, yeah. You see all those peaks? We got great bond here. So now we're going to start doing the rough cuts. We need two measurements. One is the rough measurement, and the second will be to scribe the slope. We're going to be using these grout lines as our point of reference. If you can imagine, we have like a grout line right here, because one of the secrets of tile is whenever you have a grout line, you want to line it up. We want things to look like we cut it out of stones. We want this stone measurement from here to a grout line higher. So that's 1/8. That stone I'm going to go to 14 inches. So I need a 14 by 12 1/8. Above it is going to be 15 1/8. All right, now ceiling is in. Yep, the thin set that's on this is now dry. Solid as rock now, okay? It's been over an hour. We don't need to worry about it. We identified the squares. So finished stone, so on and so on, so our grout line stays continuous. Got a factory edge. So my factory edges will line up here. Now we have to add gaps. Because we have a change in plane, we will actually install this tile up here right on that grout line, and then we will have about 1/8 of an inch gap coming along the bottom. And when it came to this one, we set it there, and then we add the slope for the ceiling. We got room for all of our grout. We got room for all of our silicone after the facts. We need to have proper gaps here and in the back, just like we did on the top and bottom. There's a little bit of a gap. We got gaps between the metal and the stone. Everywhere we go from one material to the next, there's a grout line. And we are good to go. Just really gently. And we set that back, collapse the ridges, and then we'll open this up just a hair. So we got room for our metal. Now we're looking for flush to the front where the metal will show. Our silicone is going to be concave, so a little bit of variation with your scribe is not an issue. But this has got to be on the money. Take our metal and get that bad boy squeezed into that thin set. This is what we're looking for. We don't want that back. We don't want it over too tight. We want it just perfect. So we're going to set it up. So that side is done. All right. Remember, the secret here is leave it. Come back the next morning, 6-hour wait at least, okay? Then we can take everything out, do all the polishing, do all whatever you want to do. But I am extremely happy with this. We're moving out of the shower now. Time to do the curb. So let's just recap. We have a grout line coming down the middle of the room that we established from day one that hits that back wall. It goes off the edge of that window. So we're going to have 3 pieces of stone here, maintaining that grout line. 3 pieces of stone here. At the end of the day, making your shower this wide, that's your finish. Looks just fine. Thank you very much. And out here, we will set this one as deep as we need to. All right, for our finished piece, which is 5.5. And so there essentially is the wrap. Now the goal is to have this part slope just a little bit towards the inside, 1 degree tops. All right, so today we want to get it set. Tomorrow we are going to spend the time to make it perfect, just like we did everything else this morning when we started. We're not doing back buttering technique on this. Okay, we are going to be changing our whole delivery system because this is just the facade of a curb. It's not a structural element. It's not going to see any action. It's going to have no idea what's going on one day to the next. It's not seeing hot water. It's not going to be exposed to any expansion and contraction. We're just going to muscle in a whole whack, kind of like mortaring a brick. We're going to get it over here. We're going to give it a gentle nudge. That's it. Okay. We're going to make contact, and we're just going to put a square on it. Make sure she's square. That's it. Now, I am not feeling like I have enough mud down at that end. Okay, inside the shower, This line right here is going to be covered with a silicone, right? So if I'm stuck right on the tile without any rise, I'm fine. On the outside, I'm also getting that joint, but I have the ability to get my slope by adding the little wedges on this side to lift everything over. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. It's almost perfect. I've got level and flush. We've got really good condition to start with here. Now it's time to go cut the couple metals so we can slide them in and finish putting all this together. That's nice here, all the way down. So I've got everything exactly where I want it, and now I'm not done. My stone isn't proud of the metal. Let me show you. Right here. So I'm okay here, not here. All the way down here. So there's only one way to fix it. Straight up, put on another good helping. I want to feel the edge above that metal. So I'm just going to keep on rocking it until I know it's right there. I'm really happy with that. You can see that now that in order to get our slope and get above our metal, I've got a really big grout line here. So I would rather have more space at the bottom of that tile than at the top. And that is going to solve that. So the left side is done. Got it. A couple more grout line considerations to take care of. One, the top space. Okay. You gotta maintain that space. All these moving parts, you don't want anything opening and closing on you as you move around. Okay. We have a nice consistent grout line on the back side. There we go. That's finished. Tomorrow I'll come back, spend an hour wiping and cleaning up, and then we're ready to grout. All right guys, it's grout time. Now, if you're a fan of the channel, you know I did a video a few years back warning you about using this grout. This grout is phenomenal, first of all. There's nothing wrong with the product, and it was designed to set up really quickly, and it's designed that has a sealer in it so you don't have to go around afterwards with a brush and seal all your grout lines. Homeowners love it, quality contractors love it, all right? But the trick with it is because it sets up so fast, it's really hard to get it on and get it wiped off and cleaned before it sets up to the point where you need a chisel, okay? So let's just be cognizant of the fact that my process here is three things. First, I'm gonna use speed, all right? Second, I'm going to be using cold water only. And third, we've got the air conditioning dropped really low here. So it's like only 61 degrees in this room. If you have dry conditions or warm conditions, or you're not that fast, don't use this, okay? It's a nightmare, because when it does go rock hard, it's rock hard, and the only way to fix it is to literally tear all the tile off and start over. But if you're confident and you're not gonna get distracted, then this is an ideal product. And so let's just get into it. Here's the formula, 1 liter of water for 1 bag of grout. And we're only gonna mix 1 bag at a time, okay? Probably gonna use 2 bags of grout here. One of the other secrets to this system today is I'm going to do all the walls, and then I'm gonna wash them, and then I'm gonna throw whatever grout I have left out in the garbage. And then I'm gonna mix another batch just for the floor, okay? And that's because the drying time issue again. I don't wanna go be cheap and say, oh, I've got $10 worth of grout left. I wanna try to use it, because this has a setup time, and it just goes boom, and then it's done. Okay, there's no warning. So, right, here we go. Let's just pour all this in. And once I get started on this, there's no time for me to really fuss around and instruct. So I'm just gonna talk while I work here. So what I'm gonna do with my drill is I'm gonna set it on low and weak and slowly mix it. This powder doesn't absorb the water the way like a pancake batter will. It kind of repels it because it has that sealer in it. So it takes a little bit of work to get it mixed up. Now, that is mixed perfectly, okay? What I'm just doing is pre-wetting my surface because it makes it a lot easier to run the grout on a damp surface than a dry one. Nothing too crazy, just enough to help your grout float skim along. Now, we're using a regular rubber float, okay? This is for a regular tile. There's another rubber float out there that's designed for epoxy. Don't use that one, it's a little thinner, okay? My system for speed, I want to work somewhere where it's comfortable first, okay? So, I'm gonna get some grout up here. I have to get all of these trims, okay? So I'm going to force it in one side and then the other. Now remember, we use really large stone here, okay? So I don't have a whole lot of grout line, which is another benefit for this product. We're not gonna be filling up all the inside corners. That's what the silicone is for. Okay, boom. So I got all these corners. Silicone, 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 silicone. And that one's done. This grout line here needs to be done. No, we're not grouting to the ceiling. That's also the rule. I'll go over this one more time. Anytime you have a change in plane or a change in material, you use the silicone product. If you don't use silicone in areas where you can have expansion and contraction, then you run into all kinds of issues down the road, okay? So again, ceiling corners, not caring about it. Gonna need it over here. Trying not to make too much of a mess. Intentionally working from inside to outside, okay? Generally that keeps the grout off of the wall. You can see it doesn't take long to do a surface area when you're using big stone. The benefit of this. 45 degrees on your float. Snow plow the edge. Clean off all the excess. It's dry enough of a paste that you can force that in and run it really nice and clean and smooth, okay? So in real time here, this is taking me like, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes to do the whole shower walls. And you can see where the benefit of this product is. Show you what's left. Almost all of it. I probably only used 1 pound of grout so far, and half a pound of it is sitting on the floor. But here's what I know. It's time to stop. I'm tempted to do the whole floor, but there's a lot of details here, and I'm gonna miss my washing window for sure. Now, you wanna wash the same way that you did the tile work. So I started inside the window. Look how dry this is already. Okay, this is already turning into crumble. So, this is about every little surface. We're gonna wipe the tile first, get the haze off, and then I'm going to wipe contrary to the grout line. I don't want to wipe the grout line, I'll just wipe it right out. Okay, now that I got my metal polished in, I'm going to go with a clean sponge. I want to dry it, and I want to just go with a wipe and a fold, and a wipe and a fold. That's too dirty to use again. Now I come down gentle over that metal, gentle over that wall. Okay? Again, using both sides of the sponge, one long wipe each. I'll do the ceiling. That's done, and that's dirty. If I just hit another tile with this, I could leave that residue instead of picking something up. I'm gonna do this wall. Okay, I got big chunks. So I'm gonna hit the window and the frame. You get 2 wipes and you gotta clean. That's the rule. Now, when you're cleaning grout, we generally try to go contrary to the line. You can go straight up and down, that's fine. But here's the secret. Flat on the wall, wipe it down, flip it over. Next row, it's dirty. As long as you follow this procedure, you should be fine. Now you'll notice that the water itself gets dirty. So I'll switch over to a cleaner pail once I'm done this wall, and then I'll do the other 2 walls with a clean pail. I would suggest no more than 40 or 50 square feet, okay, per pail of water. When you're using this grout, it just leaves a haze on the wall afterwards if you're not careful. Okay, beautiful. Now, time to mix the next bag, and we'll do the floor. Now, here's the secret. Most people miss this step. Imagine, let's just oversize this visual, okay? Let's make this a grout line. So, I wash, and a bunch of water goes in here. Now, on a wall, there's directional traveling, there's gaps in behind the tile, everything's vertical, okay? The water generally just drains out. But on the floor, it'll sit in that groove. And then you come along and you try to press grout into it. So you're laying it over the water, which actually resists a pushback. And that's how you get the bubbles, all right? So the best thing you can do for your job before you do your floor is vacuum the whole surface again. It gets rid of the old grout that's trying to dry up in that gap, gets rid of any water that's sitting there, and gets rid of any dirt that you infected the area with by wearing shoes and coming through the job site. There we go. Don't forget the top of all of your metals, and of course the curb. Next bag. I am going to just take a little bit on my side. I'm going to get that in there. And I'm not going to worry about that to the wall joint, because that I can brush out in a minute. What I'm trying to do is get this gap to my metal filled up. Now, one of the benefits of this product is it fills gaps because it doesn't have hardly any sand in it, from 1/16 all the way up to 1/2 inch thick. So if you have a unique scenario and it has to be a thick batch, you can use the sanded stuff, or you can use this product. Use the sanded, again, you're gonna have to seal it, okay? And like I said, speed counts, right? So if we just get it distributed thicker than we needed first, then we will force it all and fix the grooves in a second. If you work in a small space at a time, you're gonna be too busy being picky to get the job done fast enough. It's better to just get it all in there. The faster you get this covered, the better. All right, now it's thick enough that I can pick it up and scrape it out. I'm gonna take the rounded corner, because there's sharp corners and there's round corners on these, okay? There, see that? I'm gonna go along and I'm gonna clean out that back corner. Make sure that I've got room for my silicone. When I'm all said and done, I'm gonna get in there. Take out the extra, the back wall, take out the extra. I'm gonna go like this on a 45. And just kind of like push it all in. It does a great job. Okay. Now I'm doing two things here. I'm forcing it into all the gaps by doing this on an angle, and I'm removing the excess off the surface. Rather do it with a float than with a sponge. And because we put it in so thick, we can actually wash right away. And we still have material in here that I can use to do any minor repairs if we find any. I know I got about 20 minutes. And then we're just gonna wipe and flip and then wipe. If I see a mistake, I'm gonna fix it right on the spot, okay? I'm not gonna wait. This is where you're gonna get all that control over your quality of your job. There we go. So I got 2 more holes that just showed up. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now I'm gonna do this side. Flip it, and there's a quick wipe. Bloody air bubbles, eh? Even though I vacuumed the whole bloody thing out, I still got a couple more. All right. There's a chance that some of this area of the floor has got a little too much water, and as the water evaporates into the air and dries out, it can leave another air bubble. So we're going to pay attention to this. You don't want to just wipe it and then walk away. Okay, this is why you want to make a special batch just for the floor, do your mosaic. Now we're going to work on the curb, and then we're going to be able to have a few minutes to let that do some drying. We can inspect if there's any integrity in that job. This is kind of like last chance. I'm going to do some inspection here. I got a little bit extra material on the wall from Grouting. Here we go. That is how you grout a custom shower. And this is definitely something that any DIYer can handle. Just got to understand your conditions and your product and have a process that gives you the best chance of success, okay? All right, perfect every time.